Hello, beautiful people. This is a topic I wasn't sure if I was going to cover because it is controversial, it is emotional, it is something that causes just a lot of emotions to come out of people. But I want to keep things real and I want to share this story because I grew up, I am a Mexican American born in this country, second generation on my dad, third on my mom, and I went to a very diverse school. And now that I look back, I do see that there were times where I experienced racism, but generally speaking, it wasn't a huge deal for me growing up. But like I had friends from all different cultures, and that's a beautiful thing. So I didn't realize how big the problem was until later in life. And I didn't know how I felt about the term white privilege because I know a lot of white people who have struggled, and I had the same misunderstanding of that term that a lot of people do. So I want to explain the time that I was on the other end of it and what the end result was and how I feel about it all now. Many, many moons ago when I was, I think 19 years old, I think I had just turned 19, me and my friend went shopping and we decided to shoplift and we got caught. When we got caught, I did what a lot of other brown kids are trained to do, and I said, yes, sir, no, sir, and I surrendered because I didn't want any further problems. My friend, on the other hand, got a little feisty, and they were like, if you do not help us calm her down, we are taking her to jail. And I'm like, let's see, what should we name her? Let's call her Pookie, just because I don't want to give out any names. I'm like, Pookie, you gotta chill, okay? Like, they're gonna take you to jail. If you don't, they're just gonna give us a ticket and then we'll go to court later. She finally got her to calm down, but they did charge her with disorderly conduct on top of shoplifting. We went to court on the same day. We got almost the exact same sentence, except for she had an added class and maybe more of a fine for that second charge. I only had the stuff for the shoplifting. We did all our classes together. We paid our fine off at the same time. Like, everything was almost identical, right? Fast forward a couple of years, and she is working for a really good company making money that I could only dream of at that time. And it was in a similar industry that I had all my experience in. So she recommended me. I applied, got the interview, passed the interview, got an offer, put my 2 weeks notice in at my job that I was currently at. And about a week into my 2 weeks notice, I get a call. And they say, we are rescinding the offer because we cannot hire anybody who has a shoplifting charge. Now, I didn't disclose that on the application because it specifically asks for felonies. I don't have any felonies. It was a misdemeanor charge. So I did not disclose it. I did not think it was going to be a problem because they didn't ask about misdemeanor. And my friend who has the exact same charge had been working for them at this point for like a year or two. So I didn't think it was going to be a problem. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I already quit my job. They're like, sorry, there's literally nothing we can do. Our company cannot have anybody with that charge on board. Luckily, I was able to get my job back. I rescinded my 2 weeks notice and they accepted it. And I worked there for a couple more years. But during that time, I had also moved out of my mom's house and I had moved in with my boyfriend. And he was already living at that apartment. So as far as like the income, my income didn't really come into play, but I technically passed like the income check because for an apartment you have to have, at that time it was 2 times the month rent, which I did. I passed the credit check. I didn't really have any rental history, but again, it didn't matter because I was moving into with somebody who had an existing lease. So they had the rental history, but I didn't pass the background check because they said shoplifting was considered a crime against the community and they cannot have anybody with that crime living in their apartment complex. Mind you, at this point, my friend had already had several different apartments. So I thought, oh, maybe she's been putting it just in her boyfriend's name. So I call her and ask her and she's like, no, what are you talking about? Like, I've never had one apartment complex mention the shoplifting charge or the disorderly conduct. And I'm like, how can that be? Because I'm calling around at this point trying to find anyone who will take me. Because when his lease was over, we're like, we'll just move to an apartment that isn't so strict. I could not find an apartment that would accept me with a misdemeanor shoplifting charge. Yet she had zero problems finding an apartment with shoplifting and disorderly conduct. So at this point, like, I'm pretty discouraged and I'm pretty upset. And I'm talking to my mom and my brother. And my brother goes, dude, it's your last name. And I'm like, what are you talking about, my last name? And he's like, think about it. Same charge, same date. She had a worse charge added to hers, but she's not having problems. But she's also white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and had, a very white name. Now, again, I just never really had things like that in my mind at that point in my life. Like, it's just not something that would have ever come to me on my own. I just would have been like, this is weird and this sucks. And my brother pointed it out because my mom and my brother have much darker skin than me. My brother has a lot of tattoos, a bigger guy, and he dealt with a lot more prejudice than I did growing up. And so it was more on his radar. So when he said that, for a while, I was like, I cannot even accept that as an answer. Like, that's stupid. I could not come up with another reason. If anybody else can, like, drop it in the comments. Like, what in the world allowed her to have these opportunities, but didn't me? Like, what else could it have been? And this is what brings me to, like, what people don't understand about white privilege. My friend Pookie has always been a very hard worker. She worked super hard to get where she was in her career, 100%. We'll never take that away from her. But the problem is I didn't get that same opportunity to do that and work just as hard at that same company because they would not accept me, even though we had the same church. Why? So it's not that she didn't work hard to get where she was. It's that she was given that opportunity when I was not. So that, to me, is what white privilege is. It doesn't mean things are handed to you. It doesn't mean that you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth. I know her background. I know where she came from. I know that is absolutely not the case for her. She had zero help to get where she is today. But it's just the fact that I am currently making the same money she was making back then. And this was probably about 10 years ago. So it took me 10 years to finally work up to that because I had that charge. And if it weren't for the fact that I had a friend who got the same exact charge on the same exact day with the same exact result as me, and her situation was different, I would have just been like, well, I did the crime. This is what comes with it. But why didn't it come with that for her? Don't get me wrong. I am happy that she didn't have to face that because to me, it was bullshit. It was a petty crime. It was years ago. I don't think I should have had to pay for 7 years. When I learned my lesson, I never shoplifted again. So I do not feel like that was warranted, but had I not had her to compare my situation to, I would have just thought that was normal. This is just what you do. This is what happens to you when you break the law. But the fact that it didn't happen to her is what concerned me and felt like there was another reason. But again, no part of me wished bad upon her. I'm happy she didn't have to deal with that. I just wish I also didn't have to deal with that. So that's my story that I've been scared to share because I don't want to upset people or offend people. But that made me believe that white privilege really is a thing. And it's a really, really crappy feeling when you're on the other end of it. When you feel like just because you were born a certain race, a certain color, with a certain last name, that your opportunities are going to be suppressed or delayed. Potentially, right? Because not everybody experiences that, but the potential is there and it feels like shit. So I hope that people understand what I'm saying. If you have any insight, please be kind in my comments, okay? I've been getting some really nasty comments lately. I don't want it. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, come back, because together is a beautiful place to be.